she's, more beautiful, smarter, and probably a better sense of humor.
For decades, one of Hollywood's most private men gave the world everything on screen and almost nothing off it. No scandals, no tabloid feuds, no carefully staged relationship reveals. Just work, quiet generosity, and a wall of silence so consistent that fans began to wonder if there was anything behind it at all. Then, slowly, something shifted. Not with a dramatic announcement, not with a tell-all interview, but through small, deliberate glimpses that the public was allowed to see for the first time. This is the story of what has actually been shared, what remains private, and why the difference between the two says more about Keanu Reeves than any headline ever could. To understand why any small disclosure feels significant, you have to understand the silence that came before it. Keanu Reeves built a career spanning more than 3 decades without ever trading his personal life for publicity. He rarely discussed romance in interviews. He avoided red carpets with dates. Even during his most famous years, from the Speed era through the Matrix franchise, journalists consistently noted the same thing. He answered questions about craft, about characters, about grief and philosophy, but almost never about who he loved. That pattern was not accidental. It was reinforced by real tragedy. In the early 2000s, Reeves experienced 2 devastating losses that are well documented and that he has spoken about only in the most measured terms. His daughter, Ava, was stillborn in 1999, a loss he shared with his then-partner Jennifer Syme. The couple separated afterward, and in 2001, Syme died in a car accident. These events are part of the public record, referenced in numerous biographical profiles and interviews over the years, and they help explain, without speculation, why Reeves approached his personal life afterward with such deliberate protection. For years following that period, Reeves was rarely linked to anyone publicly. He became known instead for his humility, his subway rides, his quiet acts of kindness that strangers photographed and shared online. The narrative around him became less about romance and more about decency, which in its own way made the public even more curious about his private world. Then, in 2019, something changed the conversation entirely. Reeves appeared at the LACMA Art and Film Gala alongside Alexandra Grant, an American visual artist he had known and collaborated with for years. It was, by all accounts, the first time he had walked a red carpet with a romantic partner in a way that made his relationship publicly unmistakable. The moment did not come with a statement or an interview. It came simply through presence, through the 2 of them standing together in front of cameras, and that alone was enough to become international news. What makes this development meaningful is not the novelty of a relationship being confirmed, but the length and depth of the connection behind it. Alexandra Grant and Keanu Reeves had known each other since at least 2009, when they were introduced through mutual friends in the Los Angeles art world. Their creative partnership predates their romantic one by years. In 2011, Reeves founded X Artists Books, a publishing house dedicated to producing artist-driven books, and Grant became a key collaborator. Together they produced Ode to Happiness in 2011 and Shadows in 2016, both blending Reeves' writing with Grant's illustrations. These were not vanity projects tucked away from public view. They were released, reviewed, and discussed in art and literary circles long before anyone framed the two as a couple. That timeline matters, because it reframes the entire narrative. This was not a sudden Hollywood romance built for cameras. It was a friendship and creative partnership that evolved gradually, out of public view, over the better part of a decade. Grant herself is not a private figure in the way some partners of celebrities are. She is an accomplished exhibited artist with a career that predates her connection to Reeves by decades. Her work has appeared in galleries across the United States, and she has spoken publicly, in her own professional capacity as an artist, about collaboration, creativity, and the intersection of language and image in her paintings. When she has addressed her relationship with Reeves in interviews, she has done so with the same restraint he is known for, offering warmth without turning their bond into tabloid material. This mutual instinct for privacy appears to be less about secrecy and more about protecting something that both of them clearly value, an ordinary shared life, insulated as much as possible from public consumption. It's worth pausing here to address the framing that dramatic headlines often use, including language suggesting a hidden marriage or a long-concealed wife. As of the most recent publicly available information, there has been no confirmed marriage between Keanu Reeves and Alexandra Grant. They are widely and consistently described in credible reporting as partners, a term both they and their representatives have used, rather than spouses. No marriage certificate, ceremony, or official announcement has been publicly documented. This distinction matters not as a technicality, but because it reflects the broader truth of their relationship. It has been defined by openness about their bond existing, paired with continued privacy about its precise legal or personal details. The public knows they are together. The public does not know, and by choice has not been told, the deeper specifics of their day-to-day life, their living arrangements, or whether marriage has ever factored into their plans. That gap between visibility and detail is, in many ways, the real story. In an entertainment culture where couples often narrate their relationships across social media, interviews, and staged photo opportunities, Reeves and Grant have taken a nearly opposite approach. They appear together at select public events, gallery openings, film premieres, award shows, but they rarely discuss the mechanics of their relationship in interviews. When asked, Reeves has generally redirected conversation toward his work or their creative collaborations rather than personal specifics. This has led some entertainment outlets to characterize recent public appearances as the couple opening up, when in fact what has changed is simply the frequency of them being seen together, not the amount of information they've chosen to share. It's a subtle but important distinction, and one that speaks to a broader principle in how Reeves has always operated: presence without exposure. There is also a cultural context worth considering. Reeves came of age in an industry era before social media dictated the terms of celebrity intimacy, and he has largely resisted adapting to that shift even as it became the industry norm. Actors of his generation, including contemporaries who debuted alongside him in the late 1980s and early 1990s, often built entire secondary careers around public relationship narratives. Reeves did not. Biographical retrospectives on his career, including career-spanning profiles published around the release of John Wick and later Matrix sequels, consistently note this as one of his defining traits: an actor whose off-screen story was almost entirely absent from tabloid coverage for the better part of 30 years. That absence made the eventual quiet emergence of his relationship with Grant feel less like a revelation and more like a long-overdue glimpse into something that had simply been allowed to exist without commentary. It's also worth noting how Grant's own public statements, limited as they are, echo this same philosophy. In interviews tied to her art exhibitions and book collaborations, she has spoken about creative partnership as something built on mutual respect and shared intellectual curiosity, values that align closely with how she and Reeves have described their working relationship on projects like Shadows. She has not used those platforms to unveil personal details about their romance, and interviewers covering her art career have generally respected that boundary, focusing instead on her paintings, her use of language as visual material, and her career trajectory independent of her connection to a famous partner. This consistency across both of their public personas suggests a shared, deliberate choice rather than incidental reticence. None of this means the relationship has been hidden in any conspiratorial sense. It has simply been managed with an unusual level of discretion in an industry where discretion is increasingly rare. The 2019 red carpet appearance functioned less as an unveiling and more as a quiet confirmation of something many close observers of the LA art and film scene had suspected for years. Subsequent public appearances, at events tied to Reeves' films or Grant's exhibitions, have followed a similar pattern: visible enough to acknowledge the relationship exists, private enough that the details of their life together remain largely their own. This approach stands in contrast to how modern celebrity culture typically operates, and it may be precisely why the public remains so fascinated. There is very little left to be curious about in most celebrity relationships, where every detail is documented in real time. With Reeves and Grant, curiosity persists because so much has genuinely been left unsaid. What this story ultimately reveals is not a hidden secret finally exposed, but a rare example of two well-known public figures choosing, consistently and over many years, to let a relationship exist on their own terms. It challenges the assumption that fame requires full disclosure, and it offers something increasingly uncommon: an intimate life defined not by what has been revealed, but by the deliberate boundaries that remain intact. In an era saturated with oversharing, the quiet consistency of Keanu Reeves and Alexandra Grant's partnership stands as its own kind of statement, not about what they have hidden, but about what they have chosen together to protect.